Kicked out as a teen for false rumors spread by my sister, years later parents see my success and demand money after they abandon me. I am a 28-year-old male with a twin sister. Growing up, my twin sister and I experienced very different treatment from our parents. My parents genuinely seemed convinced for some reason that my sister was destined for greatness, while I was the so-called black sheep, just because I was more interested in playing sports or making new friends than studying. They constantly compared us, which was demoralizing and bruised my self-esteem from a young age. As a child, I had to watch my sister have extravagant parties on our birthday with her friends while I was treated like an afterthought. She often had sleepovers with her friends, while I was never even allowed to bring my friends back to our place. To be honest, I loathed every minute of my childhood. The only person in the family who seemed to care about me was my grandfather. When he visited us, he always brought me my favorite chocolates and occasionally slipped a few dollars to me so that I could treat myself later. As the years passed, this blatant favoritism for my twin sister gradually transformed into emotional abuse directed at me. My parents would openly mock my grades and belittle my hobbies. It felt as though no matter how much I tried, I could never meet their expectations of being the perfect child. Although I was good at sports, they barred me from participating in extracurricular activities as they wanted me to concentrate only on studies just like my sister. It was frustrating, and I felt helpless as a child. Later in my sophomore year, I got grounded yet again, and this time, the crime? Having Snapchat on my phone. I had done absolutely nothing wrong except like all teenagers at my age, I had downloaded this app to stay connected with my friends. However, according to my parents, this was a huge crime and a breach of their trust as they had forbidden me from communicating with my friends. They went batshit crazy on me and threw all my stuff around the room. They then took the doors off my hinges and told me that I would have no privacy as long as I lived under their roof. Watching my parents abuse me this way, my twin sister, instead of supporting me, made my life worse. The toxic environment created by our parents' unjust actions allowed her to exploit the situation to her advantage. She adopted a pattern of lying about me, falsely accusing me of things I never did so that she could get away with everything. If she stole something, she'd effortlessly shift the blame to me, and my parents, already inclined to believe the worst about me, readily accepted her lies. She would demean me in front of my friends at school and would make fun of my appearance. Despite this, I had a wide circle of friends at school because I was approachable and open to making connections. My twin, however, struggled socially, and she started to resent that I could talk to people while she felt awkward. This jealousy reached a boiling point during our 14th birthday party when no one showed up for her on her birthday. I have no idea why her friends did that to her, but in stark contrast, my friends took me out for ice cream, and I had an overall wonderful day. This infuriated my sister further. To take revenge, my sister began to spread false rumors at school about me where she would portray me as a spoiled brat. She would falsely tell everyone that I was allegedly physically abusing her at home since our parents loved her more. Unbeknownst to me, she took things to a disturbing level. To fabricate evidence, she would punch herself, purposefully inflicting injuries like a black eye or bruised shoulder. The next day, she would confidently walk into school, displaying the self-inflicted injuries as proof of my supposed violence and make up stories. Whenever our parents questioned her about the injuries, she would lie, saying that it was due to innocent activities like playing football with her friends. The lies and her alleged black eyes started to gain traction, and people began to believe her distorted version of events. It wasn't long before whispers started circulating, and even my friends began to look at me with suspicion. At first, I noticed subtle changes. Friends who once chatted with me in the hallways suddenly became distant. Group hangouts became fewer and farther between. It was like a switch had been flipped, and people were hesitant to associate with the supposedly spoiled guy accused of violence. One day, I mustered the courage to ask my ex-best friend why things had changed between us. He opened up about how my twin sister had been spreading rumors about me. He revealed the detailed lies she had told everyone, accusing me of things I had never done. I was shocked to hear his words. The feeling was a mix of disbelief and betrayal, as if the ground beneath me had given way. My sister, someone I grew up with, was spreading lies about me, accusing me of things I would never even dream of doing. It was a betrayal that cut deep, leaving me with a knot in my stomach and a heavy heart. I confronted my sister the day after school, but she chose to ignore me. I begged her to stop lying about me, but she smirked at me and told me that I deserved to rot alone. I was at a loss for words because her lies and behavior were starting to scare me. I wanted to talk to my parents, but I was afraid that they would believe my sister over me. The isolation stung, especially because I had always been open to making friends. It felt like my sister's jealousy-fueled lies were tearing down the connections I had built over the years. Teachers, too, began to catch wind of the rumors. It was a surreal experience, as if I were living in a parallel reality where my true self was overshadowed by the malicious stories spun by my own twin. The lies had grown beyond mere teenage gossip. They were now shaping how people truly perceive me. The nasty rumor quickly reached my principal's ears, and then my worst nightmare came true. The principal immediately called me and my sister into his room, as well as our parents, so we could discuss these alleged rumors. I sat there, heart pounding, as the principal demanded the truth. I hoped my sister would finally come clean, but instead, she doubled down on the lies. She straight up told the principal that, yeah, the rumors were true, and painted me as this bully who went around beating her up when our parents weren't around. I couldn't believe it. Shock washed over me as my sister continued spinning this twisted story about how I was angry at her for getting more love from our parents. It was all a bunch of lies, but she stuck to her story like glue. My mom began to cry hearing my sister's story, holding on to my sister like she was some kind of hero. My dad tried to comfort my sister, telling her that it was brave for her to speak up and that he was going to make sure that nothing would ever happen to her after that day. I tried to defend myself, pleading with the principal that it was all made up. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of accusations, desperately trying to swim to the surface. But my sister kept at it, insisting that I was this angry, violent person taking out my frustrations on her every day. My mom's tears kept coming as she held onto my sister, giving me accusing looks. It was like fighting against a wall of belief in my sister's made-up story. My principal reprimanded me strongly, saying the school didn't tolerate bullying and these were grounds to suspend me. I pleaded with him not to suspend me, but he shook his head, saying he couldn't just let it slide. I begged him, tears streaming down my face, trying to tell him that I didn't do anything to my sister. The principal firmly told me that I would be suspended for 10 days so that others see this as an example to never bully anyone. It hit me hard, and I started crying even more, practically begging him to reconsider. My parents, angry and embarrassed by the whole situation, dragged me out of the principal's office. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to plead my case and make them understand, but they were having none of it. We left the school, my heart heavy with frustration and humiliation. When we got home, things took a drastic turn. My dad started packing up my stuff out of the blue. I was shocked, confused, and had no idea what was happening. My mom asked him what he was doing, but he just shouted that he couldn't let me live in the same house as my sister anymore. I was crying, practically on my knees, and pleaded with my sister to tell them the truth, but she stayed cold, unmoved by my emotions. My dad continued packing my things and then threw the suitcase into our foyer. I clung to my dad's legs, still begging him not to throw me out. It was like a nightmare unfolding. He told me that a bully like me didn't deserve to live in his house and that he would ask his father, my grandfather, to come and pick me up if he wanted to do that. It felt like the world had crumbled beneath me. I stood there in shock, surrounded by my belongings scattered in the foyer, kicked out of my own home. Eventually, my grandfather did show up. He gathered all my things and helped me place them in the car, helping me into the passenger seat. He made sure I had my seat belt on before walking towards my parents' front door. He rang the doorbell and when my dad opened the door, he started to yell at him for treating me this way. With stern determination, he warned him that if he ever approached me or tried to contact me again, he wouldn't hesitate to involve the police or the CPS since what he had done to a child like me could potentially wind up with him in jail. My mother, attempting to deflect blame, told him that it was my fault. However, my grandfather wasn't having any of it. He stood his ground, defending me, emphasizing that I was just a child who didn't deserve to be treated in such a heartless manner. That was the first time in my life I felt how powerful my grandfather was. He didn't back down to my parents and unlike what they believed, he trusted me. Eventually, we drove away, leaving behind my home, the only place I had ever grown up in. I can't even begin to put into words how indescribable the pain I felt during that time. I remember just crying on the bed and not eating anything despite how much my grandfather urged me to. I told him what my sister had done, and he was shocked as well. He assured me that he believed my side of the story, and I was happy that I at least had one person who had my back. When the 10 days of suspension lifted, the prospect of returning to school felt like stepping back into a lion's den. As I entered the familiar hallways, the faces of my classmates spoke volumes, judgment, whispers, and sidelong glances. The weight of the false accusations continued to linger in the air. Meanwhile, my sister blatantly ignored me and acted like I didn't exist. She had become friends with a few people who believed her side of the story and saw her as the victim of my attacks. No matter how much I tried to tell my side of the story to anyone, it fell on deaf ears. I was an outcast, branded with an unjust label that clung to me like a shadow. No matter where I went, the classroom, the cafeteria, the corridors, the eyes that met mine were filled with disdain and mistrust. I became a loner. I would keep my head down and attend all my classes, have lunch alone in the cafeteria, and would straight go back home. I had no friends and it felt like everyone pretty much didn't want me there. Throughout all this, my parents never once called to check up on me. My grandfather would constantly remind me that this was not my fault and that life would eventually be okay. I graduated high school with good grades and was looking forward to college where hopefully I would have a better life. It was only when I went away to college that I first experienced what freedom felt like for the first time. No one was watching over my shoulders, no one was comparing my grades, and no one was trying to compete with me. I met people and formed friendships with like-minded individuals. Despite the emotional and physical scars I had sustained over the years due to my family and peers, I concentrated on putting it all behind me and enjoying this college experience as much as I could. During this time, I discovered my knack for content writing. I had always been someone who wanted to be a writer, but I wasn't sure if it would be sustainable for a long time. Hence, I decided to ditch my dream. But to earn some side money, I decided to start writing as a freelancer. I signed up on various freelancing sites, which helped me secure jobs from prominent clients. This is how I slowly started building a portfolio of my work. Throughout college, I maintained this side hustle and never asked for a penny from my parents. When I graduated from college, instead of getting a corporate job, I realized that I could pursue content writing as a full-time job.